All right.
Hello.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dale Shabizian, and this is Cape Employment 360, where we kind of look around our community. We ask a poll question on our website. We invite folks from the community to come and participate and talk about the results, give some advice, give some insight. And with us today is Amy from Coastal Marketing Solutions. I love your name tag. It's so great. Mike from Good Habits Financial, Mike Patterson, and Matt Cronin from Boardwalk Business Group. Good morning, everyone. How are you today?
Doing good.
Dale.
Hanging in there, Dale. How are you?
Come on, how are we doing today, Mike?
Hanging in there. How are you doing?
You're hanging in there more lively.
I was told I was too cheery last week.
Oh no.
Is that possible?
I don't know.
I read something online that we can only be as happy as our most unhappy human. And I was like, I don't know about that. I think I have to be like myself, you know? So
Yeah.
you can be yourself, Mike.
Thank you. That's a relief.
We have that one thing to hang on to. You're making me tear up here. So today's or last week's poll that we put on our website, we put a different poll every week. And I love this phrase: if you could wave a magic wand, what would you improve most? Well, what would you want to improve most about your business? And we tried to keep this focused based on what we were seeing on social media and kind of in the news. So it was cash flow was number one, credibility, online presence, thought leadership was two. And then we had some interest in customer service, which is always a challenge for a business, finding that fine line, and then training and processes. So our goal today is we're going to reflect on this and see if anyone has any tips. I'm looking at Matt Cronin right now. Obviously, I think you probably have some cash flow insight you can provide. What are your thoughts about the poll, and what's a couple tips we can give these folks who are thinking about improving that in their business?
Sure. Thanks, Dale. No, I'm not surprised by the results. It's first and foremost on a lot of our minds right now. I think the idea of waving a magic wand is really kind of bringing us back to some of the basic business principles, whether it's related to finance or marketing or social media, and really kind of re-emphasizing what those strong principles are. So for instance, for cash flow, every organization should really have a cash flow analysis that they put together. There's a lot of good templates that are out there. A lot of SCORE, for instance, if you Google SCORE cash flow template, you'll be able to come up with one. There are a lot of organizations, mine included, that work with a lot of our clients on cash flow analysis, and would be, glad to share that sort of analysis, that sort of template. You really want to look 3 months out. You want to start with a 3-month, 13-week cash flow analysis at a detailed level. When you put that down into the format of an Excel spreadsheet, you'll see what sort of things, kind of pop out and stand out. For instance, one of the things that you want to look at is your billing processes and when you actually collect money. There are many businesses that actually bill at the beginning of a month for services as opposed to at the end of the month. Oftentimes when organizations will bill at the end of the month, they might give 30 days for someone to pay beyond that, and then payment isn't always on time. So it's very possible that some organizations that are out there are getting paid 60 to 90 days after the work has been done. You should really rethink those policies and how you go about doing that. And if you'd be able to potentially change the terms with existing customers, and if not, think about recreating terms for new customers as you move forward as well. Beyond a 3-month analysis, I think it's also important to kind of play out what the year looks like, and literally go through the exercise of looking at what your cash flow would be over the course of the year. And that can be on a month-to-month basis. We have many clients that do cash flow analyses that are month-to-month, and they look at what the their balances, how they'll change over the course of that period of time. But you really need to look at both kind of short-term and long term, using a template. And don't hesitate to ask. There are a lot of people, out there that are willing to put a set of eyes on something. Again, I frequently mention SCORE, but there's also a lot of organizations that will gladly, on a pro bono basis, help you review something and ensure that you're on the right track.
Yeah, I think something really important, sort of a light bulb that came off in my head, is when you hear cash flow projections, you think big company, right? But really, any size company can and should be doing a cash flow projection. Maybe we don't know how to do it, right? Even if you're a one-person shop, you don't know how to do it. It's out of your skill set, but it's still a really, if you are concerned about it, it's like kind of a step you need to take with somebody, right? Either learning it on your own or finding someone.
Yeah, a lot of resources out there. And, we talk cash flow, but, the reality, as a small business owner, I create a budget every year. And I know a lot of clients, especially for-profit clients, don't necessarily do that. But you want to get in these habits, creating a budget at the beginning of a period, analyzing how you're doing through the course of, through the year, in terms of a budget versus actual. Analyzing how you're doing, this year versus the same period last year. These are some basic, principles that you can implement that will really help you have a better understanding beyond just looking at how much cash is in your bank account.
Great point. Mike, I don't want to skip over Amy, but Mike, I'm guessing you probably have an interest in the cash flow respondents of the poll.
Yeah, Matt brought up some great points there. A couple I'd like to touch upon first, address those. The training, because it kind of, some of it fits into that training piece down at the bottom, especially one of the last things Matt said about if you're a small business and you don't have the expertise, there's training implementation for employees, but also training for yourself. As we get older, as we get through school, we have the teaching, the coaching is less available to us than it was when we were growing up, going to school, playing sports, doing activities, music, dance, stuff like that. They're all kind of built into the fabric there. You need to look harder. The resources are out there, but you need to look harder to find them. And I think that's a great point, to constantly be on the lookout to find people to help you with the parts that you're not good at. The invoicing thing too is enormous. If you're a one-person business, you're out there in the field doing the work. It's by the time you get home, you don't want to spend 3-4 hours a night sending out invoices. Find someone to help do that for you, and you'll find your cash flow will improve just because the money will start to come in because the invoices are going out. You're not sitting on them.
We could probably do a whole webinar just on billing.
Oh yeah, and organizations like Matt's exist to help small businesses do that. Help get paid faster. I mean, that's going to help your cash flow immediately, getting paid faster by simply getting your the invoices for the work that you've done out in a timely manner. And then final thing that I would add, it's I do more personal finance stuff, but it's a lot of the same principles, is understanding what you have coming in any given month versus what's going out in any given month. And a lot of times people just don't have their arms around that. So that's one of the first steps that I will do with somebody is, okay, if your savings goals are so on and so forth, this is the reality of the situation of what you have coming in on a monthly basis, weekly basis, whatever. Here are your expenses that you know about, things like your mortgage, your kind of estimate what your taxes are going to be based on the amount of income you make. And we can build in those fixed expenses, give you an idea of what will be left over after building in some savings components, and make sure it's reasonable to continue to run the household. Because we can't predict all the expenses, but it at least gives a framework and helps you manage your cash flow, your savings, and forming those better habits like you were talking about, Matt. What a great idea that would be for a financial practice. Let me ponder that one for a while.
Great tips, Mike. Amy, what are your thoughts about this poll, and what's going through your mind?
Well, I agree, and I responded with cash flow as well, because I do bill monthly at the beginning of the month, and over the years I've been doing my business now for 11 years, and over that time we've actually thank you, actually have moved back from net 30 to net 15, because people were not, if you say net 30, it becomes 60 easily. So by net 50, in fact, net 15, I started to actually see that people were paying on time, when I wanted it, which was by the end of the month. But even with that, I'm still seeing, lags, let's put it that way. So I was listening with great intent on what you guys were saying. From the other standpoint, the thought leadership and the I'm forgetting what the other three things we were in that category, but
credibility and sort of an online presence. So
right, right.
Being out there and being viewed as a leader.
Yeah. So I can sort of speak to that. I'm trying to do more of that myself. It was always my intent, but my vision got pushed to the back as being a solopreneur and trying to help. But I'm trying to get out there ahead of it now with, with some more blogging and sharing via social media and through email with Constant Contact and that type of thing. But it's important. It's a differentiator for a lot of businesses, and we all have a lot of competition, and there's a lot of room for competition. That's not a big deal, but you have to sort of become a top of mind business, and more so now than ever. I mean, we're in a situation where we're all trying to get new business, or trying to bring back business from having been locked down. So one of the ways to do that is to be ahead of it on, if you're on social media, if you have, social media accounts, is being in front of your people, not necessarily talking all the time about your business, or, using the 80-20 rule of, talk about your business 20% of the time, but, getting out in front of it with information that's really helpful to all businesses, and how to help them get their business in front of the other people top of mind. So, so I think, doing something like that, I mean, I'd love to see every business out there doing their own blog posts and, doing their own social media and that type of thing. It's not feasible for all of them. Although, you would hope it would be, but right now, especially, I think it's another thing that sort of ends up on the plate for the business owner. Especially if it's a really small business. So
they're struggling with cash flow, so they don't have time to do the blogs.
Right. And it's tough. And again, it's but if you can find somebody within, if you're not a solopreneur, if you have somebody within the organization that can speak to, some of the things, then you're better off having that, having them do it. And this isn't going to be popular in my marketing world, but I always want to see the business themselves doing their social media. I can't, I get more requests for people to do social media for businesses, but social media is about connecting with your customers. And why would you farm that out to somebody that doesn't necessarily know your business like you do, you know, or someone within your business that knows the business?
That person has to be part of either an extension of the team or part of the team.
Yeah. I mean,
And,
I've done it for businesses, but you know, I at this point, yeah, especially early on when it was really coming on board and stuff, but right now I really won't do it unless unless they're already a customer of mine and I know their business, you know, really, really well, because otherwise I just feel like, you know, my father, you know.
you can't, you know, so I go through the same thing and I tell people, you can't just write a check, right? You can't just write a check and you become this, you know, figure. You have to participate. We call it boots on the ground, right?
Yeah.
There have to be boots on the ground at the business, kind of feeding and feeding that knowledge out. Like the person that started the business, they started it for a reason and they have a passion or, you know, something got them into it. And that person's mind is so valuable to the world, right?
Right.
And totally get what you're saying. I think that's great advice. I think the last thing here, three of you spent, you know, talked about training and processes. For customer service, I just want to throw my hat in the ring here. We had a webinar with PR First, and I heard something, he said something really important. He said, don't let, your customer shouldn't hear from you. The first time a customer hears from you, it shouldn't be when something's wrong, right? You should be having touch points along the way. And I think as business owners, I'm afraid to hear I'm not doing a good job, right? But I need to hear it, right? I need to hear if something's not going right. I remember being part of a remodeling company many lives ago, and every week we'd hand the customer sheet and say, how are we doing? You know, from smiley face to frown. And if it wasn't a smiley face, it's like, what's happening? And it would be something stupid that somebody was doing. It could be they didn't lock the door at the end of the day and it was annoying. Everything else was perfect, but that one little thing was just kind of getting on their nerves. It's really important to just keep asking, like, how's this going? Is this going the way you thought it would go? And that's a hard question to ask, because when you ask the question, you're almost like, oh no, what are they going to say? Am I doing this right? And, you know, of course, we have our own ways that we do things, right? Because we're the professional, but it's important to get that feedback and at least address it. So that's my hat in the ring for this week. I learned a lot. I'm really happy with this week's poll. I think each of you had really great things to say. Any parting thoughts before we get on with our day?
I would just agree with you on the customer service aspect of it. You know, people are always afraid, well, what if somebody complains on like social media? I'm like, that's great. They're like, what do you mean that's great? I said, that gives you the opportunity to get out in front of it and say something and talk to them, you know, to show that you care. You know, what you want to do is address it publicly, say, I'm so sorry you had that experience. You know, we want to make it right.
Right.
Can I private message you, or can you private message me a contact information so we can take this offline and discuss how we can do that. And that's all sometimes it takes, is somebody just wants to be heard.
Right. I adopted a new phrase this year with a business I do work with. The greatest compliment you can give me is the chance to fix a mistake.
Yep.
Right. Is it really the greatest compliment? No, but it says a lot when someone can come to you and say, hey, I don't know this is going the way I thought. To give someone that opportunity rather than just going and blasting them, I think is really helpful in our world. So on that note, fellas down below, from my perspective, any other parting words before we get on with our day?
I'll just say real quickly, you know, building on what Amy said, you know, communication with the customer is so critical. And it actually, to tie back, it can help with, you know, the cash flow as well, because, you don't just have to mail or email an invoice once a month. You can have an ongoing dialogue with your customers that includes a number of components, including the timeliness of your payments. And when you have a dialogue, it just helps to humanize, and realize that we're all in the same boat, managing businesses, collectively. And it, when we can communicate with each other, it just makes things easier.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, that's a great place to end for the day. Thanks everyone for watching. Thank you for participating, and we'll catch you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dale.
Bye guys. Bye.